What up? It's your boy Tim again, also known as Chicago in the Corner. As you can see, this video is titled, George Floyd Gets a Statue. Does he deserve it? My first response would be, hell no. But before we get into this video, I'm asked that you do what I always ask you to do. Go ahead and punch that like button if you like what I got to say. You don't like what I got to say, hit the dislike button. It is a free process. Helps the analytics out on the channel, lets me know what you guys are thinking. And of course, if you got a comment, feel free to drop that in the comment section. I do respond to any and all comments. So let me know what's on your mind, son. So does George Floyd deserve a statue? If I'm correct, he has more than one, by the way. Of course, he has the mural, the painting, the tribute in Minneapolis where he was slain or killed by former officer Derek Chauvin. But he also has, it looks like a statue out in Newark, New Jersey, and something over in Brooklyn or New York City area. So there's more than one. They have already been spray painted with graffiti and things like that. Some of it, I believe it was white supremacist stuff. But we're not here for that portion of the video. We're not here for that portion of the conversation. We're going to be talking about, does this man deserve to have a tribute or a statue? As you know, he had a lengthy rap sheet, and he was indeed killed while in commission of an additional crime. He was resisting arrest, and the officers went overboard and took the man's life. It doesn't excuse anything the officer's done. The guy's been convicted. There's 3 more trials coming up. We're not here to discuss that, but let's just stay focused on Derek Chauvin. And the question is, does he deserve a tribute, a mural, a statue, a bus shot, whatever the case may be? The quick answer is hell no. He's definitely not a hero. There's not a lot we can come up with that he would have contributed to society, where society as a whole benefited. Now, that could be altered to some degree or debatable to some degree if there is a George Floyd bill produced, which in turn will be holding officers, holding police, holding LEOs responsible and accountable for adverse actions on the population, violation of civil rights and things like that. And it'll kind of detail what they can and cannot get away with and remove some of the protections. But that's not because George Floyd intentionally did good in society. He happened to die while committing a crime, and there may be some good that comes out of it, but that is not something you would attribute to him, even if his name is on the bill. So does he deserve a statue? My response right off the bat is, as I said several times already, is hell no. I don't think the guy deserves any kind of positive accolades like that. We can tell what happened to him, but you don't need to give him a statue or a tribute or something of that sort. So where am I going with this video? Well, let me ask you this. Now that the statues and the murals have been put up, and there are plenty of people who want them removed to the point of defacing them, if they were to take down the statue of George Floyd, would that be erasing history? And that's what we're here to talk about. Is that erasing history? Now, it's a very short history. I mean, George Floyd's been dead about a year. The trial's been over with now a few weeks, but that is history, and it is in the history books. I mean, there was a lot of fanfare around it. I mean, it's probably the most popular or well-known criminal court case involving police since Rodney King, and obviously Rodney King has a lot of history to it. Just simply saying the name, everybody knows what it means. Same thing with George Floyd. There's been a lot of these cases, but Rodney King and George Floyd probably ring a bell a lot more than, say, Mike Brown or Eric Garner or some of these other people. I mean, because it was a huge case with a very highly televised trial worldwide, if I'm correct, because I've talked to people overseas that were watching that as well. So there definitely is some history behind it. History doesn't have to have happened 20, 30 years ago for it to be history. If everybody knows about it, it's going to be remembered. I mean, September 11th was history as of September 12th. We knew it was going to be, it was going to result in permanent changes, permanent memory, and things like that. So if you remove the statues, are you erasing history? Obviously, for my right-wing audience, you probably know where I am going with this. There's no way around it. I'm just going to come out and say it. Most of the people who are in favor of taking down George Floyd's statue or tribute are in favor of keeping the conservative ones up, or the Confederate, not conservative, same in this case, but the Confederate statues, they are in favor of keeping those up under the guise that they are preserving history, but they would want George Floyd's removed. Now, I'm seeing a lot of similarities between these. I'm sure if you're on the right, you're a right winger, you don't agree with a lot of this, but as I always say, hear me out. George Floyd was by no means a law-abiding citizen. Neither were the Confederates. They were angry that the North was allowing black people to escape from the South because the slaves would escape in the North in pursuit of freedom, and the South was becoming angry that they weren't not returning the slaves back to them in the South. And they decided to secede. There's other reasons why. It's obviously, they wanted to preserve slavery, but there's taxation and states' rights and other issues in there. But the number one reason they wanted to invoke their states' rights was they believed they had a right to maintain slavery. We can argue that in the comments. Post a link. Show me what you're talking about if you disagree with that. I'd love to see it. I would love to read it, and I promise I will. But yeah, so in terms of a United States, which we were at the time, we were the United States, the Confederates were not law-abiding, and they, up to and including, they tried to kill or assassinate Abraham Lincoln. In addition to that, obviously, tens of thousands of Americans, Yankees and Confederates, were killed during that war, and it was a violent action to try to secede from the United States. Now, we do have a court of law. We do have a process in which you do things. If that process fails, you wrap it up and understand that you lost in a duly appointed court of law. You didn't go to violence. And what they did was exactly that. They went to violence. I mean, we could argue that January 6th is another case of that, where the Trump supporters and Trump himself took everything to court because they believed that the election was fraudulent. And when they lost in court, some violence happened. Another very popular common phrase, "come and take it from my cold dead hands." If you ever heard of any of those phrases, that also is saying that if they ever pass a law overturning the Second Amendment, I'm not going to be a law-abiding citizen. So don't ever think that, anybody is not capable of rioting and looting. It's just a matter of, if you take away something they care about, they're capable of rioting and looting. So, yeah. So does he deserve a statue? Like I said, no, of course not. But once again, if you're defending one, you shouldn't be defending the other. Just like with George Floyd, the Confederates were not law-abiding. I mean, they were committing crimes. They did a lot of harm to the United States, certainly more than one George Floyd could have done by himself. I mean, when you think about all of the attacks that General Lee or Stonewall may have led on other Americans, costing the lives of lots of Americans, he shouldn't be held as a hero. There's just, I don't get how he would ever be held as a hero. What has he done heroic for the United States? Nothing. He tried to secede and he failed at it, but yet somehow he's gotten a statue. He's being paid tribute to. So I know that this will insult many people, putting these two people on the same plane, George Floyd and General Lee, a general versus a common street criminal. But when you really look at it, there's a whole lot of people in America, that drug dealers and drug lords and gang leaders that have risen to a significant amount of power within the criminal enterprise. General Lee's no different than that. You basically led a bunch of criminals to do what you wanted them to do. Now, the only difference is you may totally disagree with what some leader, Larry Hoover or, Al Capone or some gangster did in regards to trying to lead his people, as opposed to what General Lee did. But at the end of the day, they're both criminals. There's nothing law-abiding by what General Lee was doing, and it cost the lives of over 100,000 people. So easily tens of thousands of Yankees died at the hands of this guy. So you either want law-abiding citizens or you do not want law-abiding citizens. You can't, what people are doing is picking and choosing when it's okay to break the law. That's not how it works. Are you law-abiding or are you not? So that's my question, though, is if you're defending the murals for George Floyd, but you want the statues, the Confederate statues taken down, or vice versa, Explain yourself. I would love to see that in the comments, because how can you possibly defend attributing a statue to one criminal while asking that the statues to the other criminals be removed, or vice versa? And once again, as I stated earlier in the video, if you remove those statues, George Floyd, General Lee, Stonewall Jackson, and a host of the if you remove any of that, is it erasing history? History, like I said earlier, history doesn't start after a certain time period. The minute you put that statue up, it is a testament to something that happened throughout history. And absolutely, the last year, I believe George Floyd for the year 2020 was right behind like COVID or the pandemic. So that was a big story. So it absolutely has some history behind it. I'd say easily 20, 30 years from now, if we're still around, someone says the name George Floyd, you will instantly know what they're talking about. I mean, it's just like with Rodney King. Rodney King happened in 1991, which is exactly 30 years ago this year. Everybody knows who Rodney King is that was around during that time. If you're 40, 45 years of age or older, and someone says the name Rodney King, you instantly know what they're talking about. George Floyd will be the exact same way. So there's no doubt there's a significant amount of history behind this. It's going to end up being one of the events that, one of the events for the ages. We don't like anything about the guy and what he was doing. We can argue that all day long. History is history. I mean, it is what it is. So once again, I'm just going to go ahead and cap this video off, keep it sweet and short, but I want to ask you, how do you feel in regards to hating one statue and defending the others? Or do you think that's wrong? Are you a believer that if you're not law-abiding, you should not receive any type of tribute regardless of what law you were fighting to overturn? I would love to hear your answer on that. Anyway, this is Chicago Out. Once again, like, comment, subscribe, and talk to me in the comments. You guys have a good day.